So I've had this router system now for a few months, and I've just now gotten around to putting it together. I've put it off because I wanted to initially be able to put it together at the same time that I built the cabinet for the bottom, but turns out I actually need to use the thing, so I figured I could put it together now and go back later and build the cabinet for the bottom. And here I'm building the wheel assembly. I just started off with that because obviously it needs to be on wheels to be in my shop because my shop is so small, and I figured if I went ahead and put all the wheel assembly together first, that I wouldn't have to go back and take the feet levelers off later, which is normally what you would do if you bought the wheel system at a later date. So to save myself a little time, I figured I would just start off there. The assembly is really fairly straightforward and simple. It's just pretty tedious. It's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. Just tightening bolts and installing bolts and washers, and I like to lay everything out before I get started and identify all the bolts, so I'm not trying to figure out what goes where as I'm trying to assemble it. It seems to just make things a lot easier that way. And if I usually will even go so far as to install the washers on the bolts already, so that I can just grab each bolt with a washer on it and install the nut on the back side. Most of this stuff just gets installed loosely until you slide it into the tracks. And right here I'm just installing the feet levelers on the two that are on the end. I use this tape here because the bottom rails are supposed to be 5 inches up from the bottom, and it seemed to work okay in the preliminary assembly, but ended up having to take it back loose to be able to get the tape out, so I don't know actually how helpful it was, but I guess for the initial setup it sort of helped, where I could just sort of get everything somewhat snug until I could go back and get everything straightened out. The top rails are pretty simple. They just mount in place and they're supposed to be flush with the top. And I just sort of snugged them up here in this step, and when it comes time to actually mount it to the top, the instructions actually call for it as well, is to just loosen the bolts back up and slide it down as flat as you possibly can on the table. And once you're done screwing it to the table, then you can go back and retighten the bolts. I used the tape to help sort of line the stand up as I was going, because it was pretty frustrating to get it lined up. I ended up putting a piece of tape on both ends and putting a center mark of the table and a center mark of the stand itself, so I could be able to line it all up so it wasn't, you know, out of square and out of whack. This seemed to be the best method for lining it up, because I was trying at first just using my tape measure and it just kept moving out of shape every time I would move it around. So having a center mark made it a little easier. I bought this Porter cable router here to be dedicated to the router table. It's I think it's a 3 1/4 horse router, I believe it is. And I got the Incra master lift system, which should be very handy to use. It allows you to be able to change the bits from up top instead of some of the other router systems where you actually have to take the router out to change the bit. So I figure that's going to be a pretty handy feature to have. Here I'm just taking all the stuff. This is the main box that has all the system components in it. This is actually the super system that has all the Wonder fence and the right angle fixture and all that jazz in it. And the first thing you actually have to do with mounting this is mount the carriage or the sleeve that the main carriage slides in, and I use my T-square to get it square to the fence and bolted it down. After that, it's pretty much just pretty simple bolting the fences to it, and your accessories sort of just come kind of as you need them for whatever task you're going to be doing. So I hope maybe you guys get a little bit of something out of this. It's not really a how-to video. It's just sort of wanting to give you guys kind of a brief overview of how this thing goes together. I don't have everything on it yet. Some of the accessories and stuff are still on the table over there, which I think they're for different operations. I haven't really figured out exactly all the things this thing can do yet. I actually haven't even used it yet. So I'm sort of anxious to actually play around with it and figure out all this thing does and learn how to use it. The plan in the very near future is to get one of Incra's dust collection systems that actually goes underneath the table, and I think it's got the Magna-Lock rings that go with it that pull the dust through the bottom. And once I get that, I'm going to be enclosing the bottom with a cabinet to be able to store all the stuff with it, because this thing's got a ton of different accessories. Plus I'm sure I'm going to be wanting to store router bits and the templates and all that stuff. So I definitely want to be able to do that. And I wanted to do it now, or actually before I put this thing together, but I need the router table for a build I got coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So I figured I'd go ahead and just get it put together for now, and then I can go back later and just take the top off and build the cabinet for the bottom. I hope to have another project video out for you guys within the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be starting this big built-in job that I got, and I'm probably not going to shoot that like a regular project video. I may just film it and put some music to it and put it out there. It may be in 1 or 2 parts, I don't really know yet. I really need to get that thing done, and that's sort of a big job, so I'll probably be putting those videos out as well. That's pretty much it for this time, guys. So until then, happy trails. Thanks for watching.